عالمنا يتخبط في التحديات والأزمات، فما كاد يتعافى من جائحة كوفيد-19 حتى وجدنا أنفسنا في مواجهة حروب تلقي بظلالها الثقيلة على تفاصيل حياتنا، وتدور رحاها في مختلف أنحاء العالم. الحرب الروسية الأوكرانية في أوروبا، والأزمة السودانية في أفريقيا، وأحدث فصولها تجري الآن في قطاع غزة، حيث تفاقمت الأزمة الإنسانية لتحصد الحرب أرواح آلاف الضحايا من الأطفال والنساء والشيوخ والأبرياء. ومع أن دولة قطر كانت في مقدمة من حذروا من خطر تمدد هذه الحرب نحو مناطق أخرى في الإقليم، إلا أن العالم بأكمله فشل في منع ذلك، وتمددت المواجهات حتى البحر الأحمر، مما هدد الملاحة الدولية وزاد من مصاعب التجارة العالمية التي تعاني أصلاً. إن التحديات المتعددة الناجمة عن هذه الأزمات المتعاقبة تفرض على الدول العمل على تحسين الأوضاع الاقتصادية، حيث أن ذلك يساهم في خلق واحات للاستقرار، وهذا ما تمكنت دولة قطر من تحقيقه بقيادة وحكمة من سيدي حضرة صاحب السمو الشيخ تميم بن حمد الثاني حفظه الله، التي تجسدت في رؤية قطر الوطنية 2030، وهو ما مكن البلاد من اجتياز تحديات جمة وصولاً إلى المرونة التي تميز الاقتصاد القطري وتضعه في موقع تنافسي على المستوى العالمي، وكفاءة الاستثمار في الثروات الطبيعية والطاقات البشرية. وبفضل الله تعالى واصل الاقتصاد القطري في تحقيق المؤشرات الدالة على ثباته وازدهاره، فقد حقق الناتج المحلي الإجمالي بالأسعار الثابتة لغاية الربع الثالث من 2023 نمواً بنسبة 1.6%، وتزامن هذا النمو مع تحسن مؤشرات الاستقرار المالي، مع تبني الحكومة خطة مالية مرنة تجاه التقلبات في أسعار الطاقة. الحضور الكرام، على الطريق نحو آخر مراحل رؤية قطر الوطنية 2030 سوف تواصل الحكومة العمل لاستقبال وتعزيز بنى اقتصاد قطري متنوع، مدفوع بمبادرات من القطاع الخاص المحلي والأجنبي، ومدعوم بسلسلة من الإصلاحات التنظيمية والحوافز الاستثمارية، ومؤهل لتبوء مرتبة متقدمة من بين أفضل 10 دول من حيث بيئة الأعمال. السيدات والسادة، تسير قطر نحو تحول رقمي شامل من خلال الاستثمار أكثر في مجالات التكنولوجيا والابتكار والذكاء الصناعي، ولأجل ذلك خصصت الدولة حزمة حوافز بقيمة 9 مليارات ريال قطري. وفي سبيل تحقيق ذلك تستضيف دولة قطر ولأول مرة في منطقة الشرق الأوسط وأفريقيا مؤتمر قمة الويب لتعزيز الشراكات مع كبار المستثمرين وتبادل الخبرات مع رواد التكنولوجيا من أنحاء العالم. وعلى هامش هذه القمة تم إطلاق مشروع ابدأ في قطر، حيث تم تسجيل أكثر من 250 شركة ناشئة. ويسعدني أيضاً في هذه المناسبة أن أعلن عن إطلاق مشروع الذكاء الاصطناعي العربي فنار، والذي سيعتمد بشكل أساسي على جمع بيانات عالية الجودة باللغة العربية، والذي سيسهم بدوره على إثراء النماذج اللغوية الكبيرة والحفاظ على الهوية العربية. كما تواصل الحكومة استثمارها في مجال الطاقة، وبحلول عام 2030 وبفضل مشروع توسعة حقل الشمال ستكون قطر قد أكملت توسعتها في إنتاج الغاز الطبيعي المسال، مما سيرفع إجمالي الإنتاج إلى 142 مليون طن سنوياً. السيدات والسادة، كلنا فخر بأن دولة قطر أصبحت منارة للفرص الاقتصادية للكثيرين، ويسعى إليها المستثمرون من أنحاء العالم، وتوفر الأساس الاقتصادي للنجاح الذي يمكن أن ينهض بالمنطقة حتى يتمكن الجميع من التمتع بهذا الرخاء. كلنا أمل بقدرة شعوبنا على تخطي التحديات التي تواجهنا، وفي قطر كلنا عزم على إحداث التغيير لتأسيس مستقبل أفضل لنا جميعا. نتطلع إلى رؤية الفرص الاستثمارية الجديدة من خلال منصة هذا المنتدى. شكرا لكم ومرحبا بكم جميعا في الدوحة.
Please welcome to the stage His Excellency Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani, Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs of the State of Qatar, for a conversation with Bloomberg's Francine Lacroix.
Prime Minister, thank you so much for your address. Thank you so much also for being here. I'm looking forward to talking about some of the opportunities and some of course, the things that you'll do economically, but I think we really need to start with the conflict in the region. Qatar has really played a crucial and active role in negotiations between Hamas and Israel since October 7th. How are those negotiations going?
Well, it's been actually a very long process, and especially in the past few weeks, we have seen some momentum building, but unfortunately, things didn't move in the right direction. And right now, we are in a status of almost a stalemate. Of course, what happened with Rafah has set us backward a little bit. I think, there are a lot who are not understanding the nature of this conflict and mediation, and there is a lot of misconception about it, because if we will look at it, when there are two parties who want to agree on something, you need to agree on the baseline, first of all. And I believe that what we are seeing, there is a fundamental difference between the two parties. There is one party who wants to end the war and then talk about the hostages. There is another party who wants the hostages and wants to continue the war. And as long as there is no any commonality between those two things, it won't get us to a result. I believe it's very important for all of us right now to see what's happening with all this destruction that's happened in Gaza. Enough is enough. We need to stop the war. We need to focus on the future. What's the catastrophe in Gaza, actually, if you look at it, most of the reports saying that it will need 40 to 50 billion to rebuild it until 2040. So the amount of destruction, we didn't see much of it. Only what we see on screens probably will not represent more than 10-20% of what's really there happening. And of course, adding to this the risks of the spillover of the war, and we have seen, the region became a very turbulent region, whether it's on the Red Sea, in Lebanon, and this risk is just going to increase as long as the war is ongoing.
But, Prime Minister, more immediately, do you see any silver lining? And how does the current fighting completely stop?
Well, we believe that the best way for us, that's what we'll be calling for, that to reach an agreement where we recognize that the ceasefire is required now. We need to stop the killing. We need to stop this atrocities that's happening. And, of course, to negotiate a deal for the hostages. I think that if those two elements aligned, we believe we can have a deal, in just in a matter of days. But as I mentioned to you, probably there is no clarity how to stop the war from the Israeli side. I don't think that they are considering this as an option. And there is also, unfortunately, like a stereotype, even when we are talking about a deal and potential leading to a potential ceasefire, a lot of politicians are, retracting us by their statements that they will remain there, they will continue the war. And there is no clarity on what Gaza will look like after this.
So there's not much hope there.
Well, I'm always hopeful, so I cannot say that there is no much hope. Of course, we will keep trying, we will keep pushing, but it's at the hands of the parties at the end of the day. Once they are willing, they will find us helping and facilitating and bridging the gaps.
Do you see Qatar as continuing having a role in these negotiations?
Well, we didn't stop. We had actually some challenges in the past few weeks. We did a reassessment of the attitude as well. I mean, also we didn't want to be used or abused as a mediator. And to make it very clear for everyone, our job is limited to our mediation role. That's what we will do. That's what we will continue to do. Of course, whenever we are needed, we are stepping up. We were needed in the last 2 weeks in helping in the negotiations, and I believe we made a very good progress in the last round.
Prime Minister, there has also been talk about Qatar asking Hamas leaders that reside in Doha to leave. What's your country's stance on this?
Well, there is actually, there are a lot of speculations about this. And basically, if we look at this specific issue, we need just, to understand the backgrounds. When Hamas started their presence here in Doha back in 2012, it was for a reason. It was to serve as a political office for them to create a communication channel between them, the Israelis, the Americans, everyone. And this channel proven to be effective. I mean, if you look at different conflicts from 2014 all the way until now, this office played a key role in it, including the hostage release that unfortunately a lot of politicians have forgotten. Around 109 hostages been released because of the mediation that's been facilitated and mediated by Qatar. And it was the only hostage release that happened throughout the war, not by the military action or not by pressuring or doing so. And we believe that as long as the war is ongoing and there is a need for the communication, there is nothing to be entertained in that area. Our view here in Qatar that we need to be, accessed for different parties to resolve conflicts. We are not parties of the conflict. Like our principles, our policies in support of the Palestinian people will never change. Our policy in having a two-state solution will never change, and nothing will compromise it. And as long as we are, having the capability to be helpful, we will do it. We did that between Afghanistan, between Taliban and the US. We did that between different parties in Lebanon, in Sudan, and others. And that's basically the core of our foreign policy. It's been built based on mediation, on trying to help in resolving conflicts between the party. There are countries or people might not like it, but we don't ask everyone to like it, just to understand it.
But Prime Minister, and you allude to this, there was wide regional consensus, right, behind the events that led actually to Hamas relocating to Doha, including the US. Do you see those dynamics changing?
We don't see any change. Right now, everyone is focused on the current mediation. Everyone is focused on how to get to a result to end the war and to get the hostages back.
So on the rebuilding, under what circumstances would Qatar contribute to the rebuilding of
This is actually, it's still a premature question because no one is talking about the day after from our perspective in a realistic manner. There are multiple views you are hearing here and there. We believe in one Palestinian government that should be in charge of West Bank and Gaza. And this Palestinian government should be built on consensus between the Palestinians and to lead the transition of the country. Whether this will be allowed by the Israelis, and we have seen the statements by the Israeli government that they don't want the PA even to be there. And I think that if we will end the war in a state where the country is destroyed, no vision for it, no vision for the PA to go in, it will be very difficult not only for Qatar but for the rest of the world to step in and to invest in unknown. That will remain a challenge. So we always encourage, and we are working together with our Arab partner, what we call it the Committee of Six Arabs, and the US, in order to try to think about what's the best way to transition to the day after in a way that will not actually affect the Palestinian people, will not affect the Palestinian cause, and will not undermine the Palestinian Authority.
Prime Minister, can you touch on some of the investment plans actually for Qatar? Are there any regions or actually sectors that you find particularly exciting right now?
Well, we are very much, actually, our focus in terms of the Sovereign Wealth Fund and the investment that we are investing internationally, it continues following the strategy of diversification, which is mainly we invest in everywhere in the world where there will be a high return. We ensure that the balance is struck within the portfolio. Of course, US has been, in the last few years, one of our main markets. Asia is an interesting market for us, and we have invested over there, but also we are exploring new opportunities, but also trying to expand to new emerging markets like Central Asian region and Africa as well. Our focus is, as Sovereign Wealth Fund, it's for future generations. So we wanted to make sure that these investments are not high in risk, ensuring the stability of the jurisdiction where we are investing, and ensuring the sustainable income. On a local front, we just launched our National Development Strategy 3, which is, we see it as like the last mile toward achieving Vision 2030. And if you will think about it from perspective where Qatar, in the last 25 years, focusing on building energy infrastructure, then the hard infrastructure preparation for the World Cup, now is the moment to capitalize on all what's been built. And what's really at the center of this strategy, focusing on human capital and all the investment that we have done in education and the human capital that Qatar have right now, unleashing their potential, opening up opportunities for the private sector, government to step back from a lot of things and to just remain as a regulator, creating, there is a significant incentive schemes that will be created to encourage private sector and foreign direct investment, focusing on areas of manufacturing, logistics, RRC, and tourism, ICT, financial services. Of course, there are a couple of sectors which are prerequisite, which is the healthcare and the education, and we have already made very good progress in investing in the infrastructure. Of course, the healthcare has more potential to improve the economic side of the healthcare, which is basically research and development, and hopefully pharmaceutical industry in the future.
But we talk a lot about AI and semiconductors.
Yeah.
Is there anything of interest in that industry?
Well, actually, right now we went through a review for the last year. Where can we position ourselves? And we believe that AI world is a big world and it will need a lot of investment to come in, whether it's on the infrastructure or on the application side. Now, our focus here in Qatar is how to become more complementing for other countries in the region as well, because there are ambitious plans also taking place in UAE, for example, in Saudi Arabia. And we are focused in some verticals where we have already created the national champions and how to enhance those national champions and take them to the next level by using artificial intelligence. And of course, on the infrastructure side, there is already some infrastructure being built, and now we are moving on to expand it and to grant part of it for the research element. Of course, the education institutions are very important, so that's why there are AI programs started in different universities here in Qatar. And last but not least, that what I've just mentioned in the speech, the Arabic large language model, which is for the first time, this is something that we are just launching. It's called Fanar, where we will, have a system that will be fed by the Arabic language and also the values and the Arabic culture, because we see there is a huge potential in the Arab market where application developer and others can come in and can use it for their development.
And Prime Minister, you mentioned Saudi Arabia. Have the Saudis, do they want Qatari investment for their Vision 2030? Have you provided any, or will you?
Well, we've been doing a lot of things collaboratively, actually. We have invested in a few opportunities over there in Saudi, and of course the Saudi market is a big market, very important market for our businesses as well here, and we've seen there is an increased interest in Qatari companies to go there also and to do some businesses over there. And look, I think that when we look at ourselves here, we look at ourselves, Qatar, Saudi, UAE, others. But when the world is looking at us, they look at the GCC as one unit, and you will see someone who's coming and visiting Qatar. The next day he will be in Abu Dhabi. The third day he will be in Kuwait or in Riyadh. And the same thing, it's happening. So whatever any country will do, the other countries will have an indirect benefit to it. And I think that there is a huge potential. And right now we are very much connected in the connectivity between the countries. So this will also ease the trade and the business together.
Prime Minister, do you worry that economic uncertainty makes it more difficult to attract capital to the region and to Qatar? The various US, China, for example, difficulties.
Well, it's a challenge, but I believe for us in the region, it's an opportunity. I think that there are a lot of, we see a lot of interest coming from the US, a lot of interest even coming from China. And I mean, as we are brokering peace, we hope brokering peace in the economy here.
The one thing that everyone's looking to is, of course, the US election. What kind of policies would you prefer? Is it easier to deal with a Republican president or a Democratic president?
Well, honestly, it doesn't make any difference. We have built a very long relationship with the institution over there, and despite the presidency, this is the US system. So we should expect one time a Republican and the other time a Democrat, and it's fine. I mean, the institutional relationship is the key, and it's the cornerstone for the relationship between our two countries.
In terms of the policies, do you expect, I mean, they're very different?
There are differences, but relates to the Middle East, we don't see much difference, honestly. And we have seen that we worked with President Trump during his administration, and there were approach for some regional issues where we have our point of view. We discuss it with them. They listen, they change sometimes not. And we respect. And the other, with President Biden as well, we are working with them very closely. And I'm sure you have seen what's happened. In Afghanistan deal happened during Trump administration. Then President Biden, we did with him the evacuation and all the transition after this. We are doing together right now the ceasefire in Gaza, but also other areas. And I think we are working very well with everyone.
Prime Minister, we talked a lot about volatility and some of the challenges and some of the opportunities. What gives you the most hope for the next 12 months?
Well, actually, first of all, it's when you look at the pyramids of needs, you need security. And as long as this war is ongoing, regional security will be threatened. And we will have, it will be very much unpredictable. So that's why even Qatar now, currently the president of GCC, what the theme of this year, we were very much focused on getting all the GCC partners to think about what is the best regional security framework that we can work together with in order to ensure the security and the stability of our region. What's really worrying me is, the escalation of the war, the continuation, plus the uncertainty of some of the politicians just to continue the war without having any direction where to go or what to do. And that will just put us at risk of, spilling over. But also, post the war, actually, even if the war stopped and there is no rescue plan for Gaza, I think the problem will be bigger. And in the medium term, we are very much worried after all these images to see like another wave of radicalization. So security is the key for us in the region. We need to preserve it as much as possible.
Prime Minister, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage His Excellency Andrzej Duda, President of the Republic of Poland, for a conversation with Bloomberg's John Micklethwaite.
President Duda, thank you for talking to Bloomberg and indeed to this whole forum. We will come back to Poland in a second, but a bit like the previous conversation began with one conflict, we should look at Ukraine, where things are happening. And exactly a year ago on this stage, Viktor Orban told me on stage, there is no victory for Ukraine. Do you think, bearing in mind what is happening at the moment, that is now correct?
To zależy, jak rozumiemy kwestię zwycięstwa. My przede wszystkim patrzymy na to i mam nadzieję, że tak patrzy też na to cały wolny świat, że nie wolno dopuścić do tego, by to Rosja zwyciężyła na Ukrainie. Jeszcze raz powtórzę. Wolny świat nie może w moim przekonaniu dopuścić do tego, żeby Rosja zwyciężyła na Ukrainie. Dlaczego? My mamy długie doświadczenie historyczne z Rosją. Wielokrotnie byliśmy przez Rosję okupowani, my jako Polska. Przeżyliśmy bardzo trudne chwile w naszych dziejach. Straciliśmy wielu członków naszych rodzin zamordowanych przez Rosjan w różnych okolicznościach. I wiemy dzisiaj jedno, że rosyjski imperializm się odrodził i to nie jest ważne, jak ten rosyjski imperializm w danym momencie w historii się nazywa. Czy to jest imperializm carski, czy to jest imperializm sowiecki, czy to jest obecnie imperializm putinowski. To jest ten sam rosyjski imperializm, który ma te same cechy, jest żarłoczny, jest tak naprawdę rodzajem imperializmu kolonialnego. Polega na tym, że nie szukają krajów daleko od siebie, żeby je zniewolić, żeby je sobie podporządkować, tylko podporządkowują kraje w sąsiedztwie Rosji. W ten sposób rozprzestrzeniają swoje wpływy i w ten sposób budują swoją sferę eksploatacji innych państw i narodów. Dzisiaj chcą to zrobić z Ukrainą, ale dobrze wiemy, że jeżeli na Ukrainie udałoby im się zwyciężyć, jeżeli zrealizują swoje cele, to będą atakowali nadal. Będą atakowali kolejne kraje, być może będą to kraje bałtyckie, być może będzie to Finlandia, być może będzie to Polska, być może będą to inne kraje, które kiedyś znajdowały się w sowieckiej strefie wpływów, być może będą próbowali atakować w kierunku południowym czy wschodnim, ale jeżeli zwyciężą, jeżeli wolny świat pozwoli Putinowi, pozwoli Rosji wygrać tą wojnę, to będziemy mieli do czynienia z następną rosyjską agresją.
A very powerful statement. I know that throughout this war, you have always been a passionate supporter of Ukraine, and Poland has also given a lot of equipment, more than most other countries. But Romania has now just said it would send Patriot systems to Ukraine, and I wonder, is Poland ready to follow suit and send Patriot systems as well?
Tak, to prawda. My od samego początku wojny udzielamy Ukrainie bardzo znaczącej pomocy. Chcę to mocno podkreślić, bo czasem się o tym zapomina. Myśmy byli tym pierwszym krajem, który wysłał na Ukrainę poważne uzbrojenie. To my wysłaliśmy nasze czołgi. W sumie przekazaliśmy Ukraińcom ponad 300 czołgów z zasobów naszej armii. Przekazaliśmy Ukrainie sprzęt o wartości 4 miliardów dolarów z zasobów naszej armii i cały czas Ukrainę militarnie wspieramy. Ale proszę pamiętać także o tym, że to my dzisiaj znajdujemy się w potencjalnej strefie zagrożenia i dlatego w tak ogromnym stopniu dzisiaj dokonujemy także i modernizacji naszej armii. Wydajemy w tej chwili ponad 4% naszego PKB na obronność w Polsce. Przy całkowitej akceptacji polskiego społeczeństwa, bo to trzeba podkreślić, że jesteśmy państwem demokratycznym, u nas są wybory, w których władze są wybierane i oczywiście kwestia wydatków, ciężarów, które obciążają podatników zawsze ma wtedy bardzo istotne znaczenie, ale o tym w tej chwili w Polsce nikt nie dyskutuje. Wszyscy rozumieją, że musimy wydawać duże pieniądze na modernizację naszej armii i w tym momencie to robimy. I rzeczywiście kupujemy w tej chwili nowoczesne systemy obronne i w Stanach Zjednoczonych, również i w Korei Południowej, uzupełniając ten zasób, którego potrzebujemy, bo potrzebujemy tej modernizacji jak najszybciej. Musimy dzisiaj przede wszystkim uzupełnić swój zasób, uzupełniając także to, co przekazaliśmy na Ukrainę, bo przekazaliśmy dosłownie z zasobów, które mieli w swoich rękach nasi żołnierze. Dzisiaj kupujemy dla nich właśnie nowy sprzęt po to, by mieli czym bronić Polski, gdyby doszło do agresji, ale podkreślam jeszcze raz, cały czas wspieramy Ukrainę, a przede wszystkim cały czas lobbujemy też na świecie wśród wszystkich naszych sojuszników za wsparciem dla Ukrainy, bo uważamy, że to ma w tej chwili kluczowe znaczenie, jeżeli chodzi o przetrwanie Ukrainy i jeżeli chodzi właśnie o to, by Rosja nie wygrała tej wojny.
But Patriot systems, yes or no? That was the question.
My w tej chwili dopiero otrzymujemy pierwsze elementy systemu obrony przeciwrakietowej Patriot, które zamówiliśmy w Stanach Zjednoczonych 7 lat temu. W tej chwili pierwsze elementy tego systemu przychodzą do Polski, więc trudno dzisiaj mówić o tym, żebyśmy przekazywali my Ukrainie system Patriot, kiedy tego systemu w istocie nie mamy jeszcze w Polsce w tej chwili skompletowanego na potrzeby naszej własnej obrony, bo my w tej chwili dopiero budujemy system obrony przeciwlotniczej i przeciwrakietowej, który będzie systemem trójwarstwowym od systemu Patriot poprzez system średniego zasięgu do systemu niskiego zasięgu.
You put forward a very passionate argument for how dangerous Russian imperialism is, and you also expressed all the different reasons why we need to stop Putin in this. But going back to that question at the beginning, at the moment that shows no sign of Russia retreating. It seems to be taking more territory. Do you worry that America has acted too late?
Ja jestem bardzo spokojny i trzeba bardzo mocno podkreślić, Ameryka dzisiaj udziela Ukrainie największego wsparcia. To wsparcie amerykańskie dla obrony Ukrainy jest absolutnie kluczowe. Gdyby tego wsparcia nie było, prawdopodobnie Ukraina nie byłaby w stanie w ogóle się obronić przed rosyjską agresją, a czyni to. Więc tak jak podkreślam, my byliśmy rzeczywiście tymi pierwszymi, którzy przekazali czołgi. Od razu zaproponowaliśmy Ukrainie przekazanie myśliwców, MiG-29, które piloci ukraińscy mogli używać od razu. Zresztą uczyniliśmy to, przekazaliśmy też MiG-29 na Ukrainę. Natomiast faktycznie ta pomoc ze Stanów Zjednoczonych, największej potęgi militarnej na świecie, jest dla Ukrainy największa i najbardziej znacząca. Ja chcę bardzo mocno podkreślić, jestem wdzięczny Stanom Zjednoczonym, władzom Stanów Zjednoczonych, jestem wdzięczny Kongresowi, zarówno Senatowi, jak i Izbie Reprezentantów za podjęcie tej decyzji, jak i prezydentowi Joe Bidenowi za podjęcie tej decyzji o przekazaniu na Ukrainę tych ogromnych rzeczywiście środków na obronność, o których decyzję podjęto w najbliższym czasie. Ja także w tej sprawie w Stanach Zjednoczonych w ciągu ostatnich 2 miesięcy rozmawiałem między innymi ze speakerem Izby Reprezentantów Mike'em Johnsonem w marcu, kiedy byłem zaproszony przez prezydenta Joe Bidena. Odwiedziłem także kongres, spotkałem się z przedstawicielami Senatu, spotkałem się również z przedstawicielami Izby Reprezentantów, właśnie ze speakerem Mike'em Johnsonem. Rozmawialiśmy na ten temat i bardzo jestem usatysfakcjonowany tym i wdzięczny władzom Stanów Zjednoczonych, że ta decyzja o wsparciu dla Ukrainy została podjęta, bo zbliża się rosyjska ofensywa. To, że ona będzie, jest praktycznie pewne. To są kwestia uwarunkowań klimatycznych w naszym regionie świata. Prawdopodobnie w ciągu najbliższych tygodni możemy się spodziewać tej ofensywy, kiedy tylko ziemia wyschnie i przestanie być tak bardzo grząsko, bo wiosna praktycznie uniemożliwia ciężkiemu sprzętowi poruszanie się po gruncie na Ukrainie. Kiedy tylko zrobi się bardziej sucho, prawdopodobnie ruszy rosyjska ofensywa. Wierzę w to, że armia ukraińska, że obrońcy Ukrainy do tego czasu otrzymają to wsparcie. To wsparcie w tej chwili idzie na Ukrainę. My to obserwujemy w Polsce, bo to my jesteśmy tym państwem, które stanowi drogę tranzytową do Ukrainy i praktycznie cała pomoc dla Ukrainy idzie przez Polskę. To my także w ten sposób wspieramy obrońców Ukrainy, że udostępniamy naszą infrastrukturę, nasze drogi, nasze lotniska, nasze porty do tego, by to wsparcie dla Ukrainy mogło być transportowane i ono się dzieje. W tej chwili to wsparcie trwa.
That sounds to me like better late than never. But when you also talked about meeting American officials, Donald Trump, you also saw.
się z panem prezydentem Donaldem Trumpem już długo, dlatego że ja jestem prezydentem w Polsce już prawie 9 lat i całą pierwszą kadencję prezydentury pana Donalda Trumpa współpracowaliśmy ze sobą, więc mogę śmiało powiedzieć, że jestem przekonany, że prezydent Donald Trump myśli w sposób strategiczny o interesach Stanów Zjednoczonych, nie mam co do tego żadnych wątpliwości. Natomiast co bardzo mocno chcę podkreślić, w moim osobistym przekonaniu obowiązkiem polskich władz każdorazowo, prezydenta Rzeczypospolitej, premiera Rzeczypospolitej, premiera rządu naszego kraju i wszystkich znaczących polityków jest utrzymywanie jak najlepszych relacji ze Stanami Zjednoczonymi. To jest interes dwustronny. To jest podobnie jak przed chwilą tutaj powiedział pan premier, jego wysokość. Katar ma swoje interesy ze Stanami Zjednoczonymi strategiczne i Stany Zjednoczone mają swoje interesy z Katarem i to nie jest kwestia tego, jaka administracja w danym momencie jest przy władzy, czy to są demokraci, czy republikanie i z której strony sceny politycznej pochodzi prezydent. My dokładnie z tego samego założenia wychodzimy w Polsce. Uważamy, że Stany Zjednoczone mają w Polsce swoje interesy strategiczne i Polska ma swoje interesy strategiczne ze Stanami Zjednoczonymi. To jest najpotężniejsze militarne mocarstwo świata, gwarant bezpieczeństwa, najsilniejsze państwo NATO. My jesteśmy członkiem NATO i moim obowiązkiem jako prezydenta Rzeczypospolitej jest utrzymywać jak najlepsze relacje z władzami Stanów Zjednoczonych. Dlatego w marcu spotkałem się z panem prezydentem Joe Bidenem. Byłem zaproszony przez niego do Białego Domu, rozmawialiśmy, dlatego spotkałem się z przedstawicielami Kongresu, tak jak mówiłem przed chwilą, między innymi ze speakerem Mike'em Johnsonem, a niecały miesiąc temu faktycznie widziałem się także i z panem prezydentem Donaldem Trumpem. Rozmawialiśmy na te tematy polityczne różne, długo i mogę powiedzieć tak, patrzę ze spokojem na wybory w Stanach Zjednoczonych, bo jestem przekonany, że te wybory wygra strategiczny przyjaciel Polski.
But there is a contradiction. At the beginning, you began with this, I think, very correct version of Russian imperialism. You said that if Ukraine falls, Poland could be next. You said that Russia is on the march, and yet there is this doubt about what Donald Trump would do. Do you think that if he was prepared to let Ukraine go, he could also let Poland go? Poland has a history of allies that did not support it when it needed it, as you know.
Ja nie powiedziałem, że Polska będzie następna. Ja robię wszystko, żeby nie była. Na tym polega moje zadanie. Dlatego dzisiaj wydajemy tak duże pieniądze na obronność właśnie po to, żeby Polska nie została zaatakowana. Właśnie po to, żeby Rosja zobaczyła na własne oczy, że Polski się atakować po prostu nie opłaca, bo nie da się szybko wygrać tej wojny. Rosja przekonała się już na Ukrainie w ostatnim czasie o tym, że jeżeli obrońcy dysponują bardzo wyrafinowanym, nowoczesnym sprzętem, a przede wszystkim mają serca do walki, a Polakom serca do walki nigdy nie brakowało, z tego jesteśmy słynni, pokazaliśmy to w historii już niejednokrotnie, także w czasie II wojny światowej. Rosjanie też to wiedzą, bo pokonaliśmy ich w 1920 roku pod Warszawą i przegrali wojnę z Polską. Więc wiedzą o tym, że jeżeli będziemy dobrze uzbrojeni, to obronimy nasz kraj i wtedy wierzę w to, że Rosjanie nas po prostu nie zaatakują, bo nie będzie im się to opłacało. Natomiast jest rzeczywiście tak w moim przekonaniu, że jeżeli pozwoli się Rosji wygrać wojnę na Ukrainie, jeżeli Rosja odniesie tam triumf, to będzie atakowała dalej. I to jest ogromne niebezpieczeństwo nie tylko dla Polski, to jest ogromne niebezpieczeństwo dla świata, wielkiej destabilizacji i ja widzę, że to rozumieją także politycy w Stanach Zjednoczonych, bo oni patrzą także z punktu widzenia wiedzy historycznej. Historia ostatnich ponad 100 lat w Europie pokazuje, że kiedy była I wojna światowa, to Ameryka w końcu musiała się włączyć po to, by tą wojnę zakończyć. Kiedy była II wojna światowa, Ameryka w końcu włączyła się, została zaatakowana, ale włączyła się po to, by tą wojnę zakończyć i rzeczywiście ją zakończyła. I potem Ameryka wygrała także zimną wojnę. Dzięki mądrej polityce, na szczęście bez wojny w Europie. Ale wygrała zimną wojnę i Ameryka wie o tym w moim przekonaniu, rozumieją to amerykańscy politycy po obu stronach sceny politycznej, że dzisiaj lepiej jest wesprzeć finansowo tych, którzy chcą pokoju i spokoju, by mogli obronić swoje kraje i zniechęcić tym samym do potencjalnego ataku, niż być zmuszonym do wysyłania amerykańskich żołnierzy po to, by ginęli na frontach europejskich. I wierzę w to, że właśnie dzięki tej mądrej polityce nie dojdzie do wielkiej wojny w Europie, której tak bardzo wielu dzisiaj się obawia.
We all hope that Donald Trump takes that view too. On the bigger, one last question on Ukraine. There is an issue, a big issue, which is if there is going to be a peace talks, and you've said you will join the first round of peace talks, will Ukraine have to give up some territory as part of that? Will Ukraine have to give up maybe Crimea, maybe something like that, if we are going to get peace? Does that make sense to you?
Tutaj ta odpowiedź musi mieć dwie części. Po pierwsze chcę powiedzieć, że tak jak powiedziałem przed momentem, niecały miesiąc temu rozmawiałem z prezydentem Donaldem Trumpem długo. 2,5 godziny rozmawialiśmy. I jestem Jestem absolutnie przekonany, że te właśnie procesy historyczne i istotę strategicznych interesów amerykańskich rozumie on znakomicie. I to zarówno tych militarnych, jak również i biznesowych. To po pierwsze. Natomiast po drugie trzeba powiedzieć tak. Sytuacją, do której powinniśmy dążyć, jeżeli chodzi o Ukrainę, my jako wspólnota wolnego świata, jest odzyskanie przez Ukrainę kontroli nad wszystkimi ziemiami Ukrainy uznanymi międzynarodowo. Czyli Ukraina powinna odzyskać kontrolę nad swoimi międzynarodowo uznanymi granicami. Dlaczego to jest tak potrzebne? Z bardzo prostej przyczyny. To będzie oznaczało, że przywrócony został w pełni prymat prawa międzynarodowego. Dzisiaj to, co obserwujemy, okupacja ziem Ukrainy przez Rosję, to jest dramatyczne, najbardziej spektakularne od II wojny światowej naruszenie zasad prawa międzynarodowego w Europie. Złamanie wszystkich traktatów, złamanie wszystkich tabu, atak na wolne, suwerenne, niepodległe państwo, brutalny, frontalny. To jest coś, czego Europa bała się od końca II wojny światowej. Dzisiaj jest tego świadkiem. Najważniejsze jest dzisiaj to, by napastnik, by gwałciciel nie wygrał wojny, by gwałciciel, by napastnik został zatrzymany i by prymat prawa międzynarodowego został przywrócony. O to dzisiaj powinien walczyć wolny świat. to by oznaczało odzyskanie przez Ukrainę wszystkich ziem, które dzisiaj są ziemiami przez Rosję okupowanymi i do tego trzeba dążyć i do tego dąży prezydent Zełenski. I jestem przekonany, że o tym właśnie rozwiązaniu przede wszystkim będziemy mówili w czasie zbliżającej się konferencji pokojowej w Szwajcarii. Mam nadzieję, że będzie w niej brało udział jak najwięcej polityków, liderów, przywódców państw z całego świata, bo niezwykle istotne jest to, aby właśnie na tym jak najszerzej światowym forum tą kwestię omówić, podkreślając to znaczenie prymatu prawa międzynarodowego dla zachowania pokoju nie tylko w obszarze Europy Wschodniej czy Europy Środkowej, czyli tym obszarze, w którym ja żyję i w którym istnieje moje państwo Polska, ale w ogóle na świecie.
I'm interested by what you said about Ukraine. Can I ask you one thing about Poland's place in Europe? It occurs to me that yesterday I interviewed President Macron in France. He would agree with pretty much everything you say about Ukraine and about Poland and about the need to defend things, but he would say the answer is Europe. We made to make Europe bigger, made to make Europe stronger, and that is the most important thing. And this is an area of disagreement between you and the Prime Minister in Poland. Donald Tusk is a very committed European. You tend to be more of an Atlanticist. Do you think Europe is going to end up being more independent of America?
Ja całkowicie podzielam zdanie w tym zakresie, że Europa powinna być większa. Jestem absolutnie zwolennikiem polityki otwartych drzwi w Unii Europejskiej. Dlatego tak bardzo mocno wspieram ideę przyjęcia Ukrainy, Mołdawii, jak również państw Bałkanów Zachodnich w pierwszej kolejności do Unii Europejskiej. Proszę pamiętać, że w lutym 2022 roku, zaraz po rosyjskiej agresji na Ukrainę, byłem inicjatorem listu przywódców Europy Środkowej do Komisji Europejskiej o to właśnie, aby Ukrainie przyznać status kandydata do Unii Europejskiej. Wtedy wielu w to wątpiło, czy to jest w ogóle możliwe. Po 3 miesiącach raptem w czerwcu 2022 roku dokładnie to się stało. Dokładnie został przyznany Ukrainie status kandydata do Unii Europejskiej, co jest dla mnie wielką satysfakcją. Wspieram ten proces poszerzania Unii Europejskiej, tak, i chcę, żeby Europa była silna. Chcę, żeby Europa była silniejsza, chcę, żeby była wspólnym rynkiem, ale chcę, żeby była Europą równych narodów, równych państw i wolnych państw. I to jest dla mnie kwestia nadrzędna i nie podzielam stanowiska o konieczności federalizacji Europy, o konieczności zacieśniania w znaczeniu politycznym zjednoczenia. Jestem zwolennikiem zacieśniania jedności europejskiej w znaczeniu gospodarczym, pogłębiania więzi gospodarczych, wzmacniania siły gospodarczej Europy, ale jestem też zwolennikiem współpracy euroatlantyckiej. Jestem zwolennikiem zacieśniania więzi Unii Europejskiej ze Stanami Zjednoczonymi. To dlatego właśnie priorytetem polskiej prezydencji w Unii Europejskiej, ona będzie od stycznia do połowy 2025 roku, będzie właśnie między innymi zacieśnianie więzi euroatlantyckich, czyli zacieśnianie współpracy gospodarczej pomiędzy Unią Europejską a Stanami Zjednoczonymi, bo ta współpraca ma charakter strategiczny. Ta współpraca gospodarcza w bardzo prosty sposób przekłada się także na kwestię bezpieczeństwa europejskiego.
We will look forward to see what Poland does with the European Union when it's in charge of it and has its presidency. President Duda, thank you very much for talking to us today. Thank you. Thank you.
To the stage, Datu Seri Anwar Ibrahim, Prime Minister of Malaysia, for a conversation with Bloomberg's Haslinda Amin.
Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim has been in power for 18 months, and in that time,
He's managed to bring stability to his government, much to the surprise of the naysayers. It is, after all, an alliance which includes foes turned allies. Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, it's good to see you again.
Thank you, Zinda.
Before we get to the crux of the conversation, I'd like to address the elephant in the room, a Bloomberg report which prompted a robust response from you. And it's hurt relations somewhat, so I just want to get it out there so that we can move on. The Bloomberg report said that you held early-stage discussions for a casino in Forest City, and you said they were lies. So, Prime Minister, there were no discussions, no meeting that happened, and linked to that, would your government consider a second casino in the country, or would you adopt a no-casino policy under your administration?
Affirmative, no. There's no necessity for Malaysia to venture into casino business. We are focusing on digital transformation, energy transition, AI, and we believe that this is adequate to push the country forward. Now, the complication with the casino was that nobody actually referred to us to check the facts and the veracity of the information. And number two, it complicates because the king's name was somewhat implicated or insinuated. And in our system, although it's a constitutional monarchy, the person monarchy highly respected and regarded. And it's grossly unfair, not only for you, but then abused by some other members of the opposition to say that the Prime Minister and the King is in cohort trying to open up a new casino. And that was why I took a very strong position, because it is, again, manifestly unjust to drag the name of the King, because the King is not a politician. They are not at liberty to respond. And the system of the royal members is that the paraphernalia must be respected, how we address them, and the fact that they are accorded with dignity and respect. That was why I took that. But nobody was arrested or the media was banned. They were just the process asking questions, and I think we move on.
We move on, just to be sure, to put it out there, no casino under your administration. Let's talk about the economy. Almost 2 years on, is the Malaysian economy where you thought it would be? Because when you speak to some investors, they say, you know, they've been pretty frustrated because of the slow rollout in your reforms. They point perhaps to the slowness, the delay in cutting fuel subsidies, which would add to the coffers, improve your fiscal position. Your response to that?
Well, we have undertaken these stringent measures. I've inherited a system where we have 1.5 trillion debt deficit for 5.6. Now, of course, I have to deal with this. Now, an abrupt, radical change would result in a lot of frustrations and anger. We have seen the so-called reform agenda in many of the countries in Europe. It's a disaster. You assume that the elites have all the answers without even interacting with the masses. And I think this is the flaw, basic flaw of the so-called elitist democratic ideals. Now, what we have done is, firstly, the issue of transparency, the issue of strong call for anti-corruption measures. All procurements must be through proper, transparent tender exercise, which did not happen. That's why corruption became endemic, and we lost billions in the process. But have we not taken measures? No, we did. The fact, Sinda, that we focus on proper tender process, that saved billions. And this is a major shift from the old corrupt policies. Secondly, we have undertaken, for example, electricity. The cutting of subsidy for electricity to the rich, to industries, but not affecting the 85% of the population. I don't think we should burden the issue of the governance is to make sure that it is transparent, it is just, but it should not punish the poor. Did we do it? Yes. How much did we gain? 4 billion ringgit. Now, we subsidize even for chicken. We withdrew the subsidy. How much did we save? 1 billion. Give us a break, Aslinda. Don't force us to make all these measures in 1 year.
So when it comes to the cut in fuel subsidies, can we expect that in June? Some say perhaps by year end. Can you give a time frame?
We acknowledge diesel and oil. Our prices is the cheapest. I mean, Malaysian price is cheaper than even Saudi Arabia. So I concede things need to be done. But it has to be done judiciously, because in no way will I punish the masses. You see, inflation can be a problem. What can be the priority? The priority is to stop the wastage and the leakages. If we can reduce the leakages and stop the waste
Can you
and
commit,
corruption,
though, when those cuts will be happening?
what is the priority? Do we need the funds? Yes. How do we need the funds? Cut the excesses, the waste, stop the corruption. We can save billions in the process. Do that first. And we did that precisely in the first year. Now we move on to electricity, we move on to chicken subsidy, and now we have to consider about diesel. Because of too many leakages, billions are lost. But how do we then proceed to undertake this reform or cutting subsidy without punishing the poor? That, to my mind, is very central. We'll do it, of course.
This year?
At the right time, when we are fully prepared.
Still no commitment to the cutting subsidies, Prime Minister?
No. Because I think, how do we do it? Any subsidy rationalization without costing further hardship to the poor. You know, I've struggled all my life in prison because of my position to defend the rights of the masses. I don't want just because we have inherited such debt and endemic corruption and then punish the poor. So elites and the liberal forces must understand, do we need to cut subsidies? Yes. Which sort of subsidies? Electricity subsidies, as I mentioned, benefiting the very rich. You have a Rolls Royce, you get a subsidy. But you're using simple, cheap motorcycles. Why do you cut subsidies for them? So it's how we implement it judiciously without punishing the poor. Yes, we'll do it in our time. You know, I've been finance minister for a long time. You always have this, keep this secret to the last.
Prime Minister, we talked about how you've brought stability to the government, but there are tensions brewing. Some members in your coalition have asked for Anwar Ibrahim, Najib Razak, the former Prime Minister, to be released and to be under house arrest. Are you for it? Is your government for it? Because suddenly your deputy is for it.
What tension you're talking about? We just won the last few days. I just mentioned to the Highness Amir. We won the very important by-elections. Increased the Muslim vote, the Chinese Buddhist vote, the Indian Hindu votes. That's fantastic in a by-election. And our candidate happens to be a Chinese Buddhist or Christian. And the opposition candidate is a Muslim. And the seat is about 50% Muslim. And we won comfortably, which means, again, do not underestimate the wisdom of the masses. You see, in a multiracial country, the majority are Muslims, they are represented, but we need to make sure that the non-Muslims, the Hindus, the Christians, the Buddhists are also represented in the representative policy or position in the government. Now, case Najib, there's due process. He has been in prison. I gave all possible facilities so that he's being treated fairly, at least comfortable, but although prison is not bed of roses, I am on authority on the subject. But there is, of course, his right to appeal for pardon from the king. And I have advised the king that you must consider as a process as is the case of any other Malaysian citizen who appeal to the king. Now, the decision is, of course, to reduce partly the sole discretion of the king. whether he should be given house arrest. Our position is, at present, you go through the process and let the king decide. But I'm not calling for
What's your perspective? Are you comfortable with the idea?
No, there's ongoing process still. There's ongoing trial on the YMDB case. I think let the process continue. If the king is supposed to ask for my advice, I would say, Your Highness, go to the process, but the Constitution provides for the king to finally decide. And I think as Prime Minister, I shouldn't supersede the king.
Prime Minister, it's been clear that you've been clamping down on corruption. In fact, former Prime Minister Mahathir Mohammed, the founder of modern Malaysia, is under investigation. What do you suspect him of having committed?
Let the authorities, Anti-Corruption Commission, which is grossly independent, proceed with their case.
He has not been charged?
No, he has not been charged.
So,
and the investigations initial, I mean, there were investigations of his children, which amassed, abundant wealth, and I think they have to explain. And I think they have been extremely kind in the sense of extending time for them to submit their reports.
some say that your government chooses who to prosecute and who to exonerate when it comes to corruption. Your response?
We see the country has been used to a system which is semi-authoritarian or somewhat dictatorial. So they assume that under Anwar, I have to do the same. I don't. The Anti-Corruption Commission is independent. So is the judiciary, which is widely regarded now under the lady Chief Judge, fiercely independent. I have not once mentioned to her about any case. Of course, I did inquire what's happening, what is required, because she was keen on setting up an academy for training for judges, but not beyond that. So for the Anti-Corruption Commission to proceed, and in my members of the cabinet, some of them here, is clear on the fact that I mentioned on various occasions that please make sure that this government effect real reform, and you amass wealth and deemed to be corrupt, I'm not here to defend. And all the coalition partners have agreed. Let us move on from there.
Are there a lot more people who are likely to be investigated?
Well, I think the Anti-Corruption Commission has been extremely active and aggressive, and I think they're doing a good job.
So more people to be investigated?
You see, what have we done? At the political leadership level, of course, very clear. Everything has got to be transparent, and tender process must be observed. But of course, since the system has been endemic, you have sometimes reports about immigration or customs happening, and they know that they'll be charged.
Prime Minister, I want to touch on the Middle East. You held a special meeting to talk about tensions in the Middle East, and while in Qatar, you met with the delegation, the Hamas delegation. Give us a sense of why that was necessary, and also, might the vocal support for Hamas hurt relations with the US?
Now, I love the experience of the Qataris. They maneuver well, and I think we can. Because why did I meet Khalid Mash'al and Ismail Hania? Is to understand from them the latest development, other than, of course, with the Qatari leaders, and express my sympathies, particularly with the assassination of the children and grandchildren, and ask their point of view, what's happening. Of course, they did relate. What was my position? I respect the initiative by the Qataris, by the Arab League, by the OIC, by the international community. There must be preparedness to secure peace. There must be a preparedness to observe and respect the decision or recommendations of your neighbors. And they seem to concede with this. But what is their strong request? To stop the continued aggression, atrocities against children, women, and the continued bombardment of Gaza. And that includes the settlements. It's illegal occupation. You are talking about colonization. What was discussed in Ukraine is about colonization. It's robbing, it's dispossession of other lands. That's all. And for that, I'm sympathetic to them. You don't tell me that whom I should meet or whom I should not. Now, if the question is with the United States, we maintain excellent relations with the United States. Cumulatively, the United States is number one in terms of
the relations
investments.
have not been impacted by your position.
I make it very clear. We are very strong in our relations with China. I do not subscribe to this xenophobia. We have been traditional allies, and most of our investments still from the United States. It's still coming. I mean, Germany, of course, new investor, the Middle East, Qatar, but from the United States, Microsoft, Google, NVIDIA, all there, and coming in an aggressive manner in Malaysia, and we welcome them. You know, Malaysia becomes now the hub for semiconductor in the region. There must be reasons, and part of it is because of the support of the United States. We do differ in some of their policies, what they consider the contradictions, hypocrisy, but overall, they are still friends.
The thing is, Washington has expressed concerns about the flow of money from Southeast Asia to Hamas and other similar organizations. Are you seeing that happening?
Well, not one shred of evidence they've adduced. There was ship-to-ship transshipment in the international waters. We do not have the capacity to observe or monitor that. I maintain good relations with Hamas, with the political wing. I have no involvement, no discussion with the military apparatus. And that's made very clear, and I think the United States do recognize that. They have, of course, every right to demand or request for explanation. And we do it to a friend who is curious to know what's happening.
What role do you see Malaysia playing in Gaza post-war?
We are a small country, relatively struggling to survive as an emerging economy. That's why I maintain excellent relations with Qatar and Saudi Arabia, UAE, Turkey, and get their sense what needs to be done. Of course, it is our duty then to do whatever is necessary, given the limited whatever capacity that we have. But we will. And I think for Malaysia in a distant land, we do subscribe to the thinking and the views of most of the Arab neighbors. That's why even the OIC, normally we do consult them first to get their understanding, then we support the position.
Prime Minister, we're running out of time. It's always too short when we have a conversation together. Just one final question. I mean, global leaders nowadays are grappling with a lot of challenges and uncertainties. What's the biggest challenge for you?
Well, I think insanity. Because sometimes you have policies that is totally absurd. I think what we need to do, right, other than focusing on the economy and development, is to bring back some humanity, compassion, and human dignity. That, to my mind, is quite lacking. That's why in the Madani framework, I put the economic policy, something about sustainability. But I do consider the issue of values and compassion. For Malaysia, it's very important because we come from a multiracial country. You realize that if you allow this sort of religious bigots and racism, fascism to dictate, they will destroy the entire fabric of our society. So if you say the greatest challenge is because challenge of insanity.
Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, we thank you so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Sinda.
Well, thank you to all of this morning's leaders. We would also like to thank our official partners, the Ministry of Commerce and Industry of the State of Qatar and Media City Qatar, our innovation sponsor, Qatar Research Development and Innovation Council, and our premier sponsors, Qatar Investment Authority and QNB.
And we would like to express our gratitude to His Highness, the Emir of the State of Qatar, for joining us today. Shukran, Lisamu al-Amir. Now, this session has ended. Forum guests, please remain in your seats while His Highness and his guests depart.